Good morning, boys and girls. I hope you had a fantastic weekend and are ready for another week of school. This week, we are going to read some different books. Last week, we read a lot of Tomie dePaola books. And this week, we are going to be reading books by different authors, but they have the same theme. And the theme is similar to some of the books that were in Tomie dePaola's books. Several of the Tomie dePaola books that we read were narratives, or they were books about memories that he had from when he was a little boy. Now, all the books that we're going to read this week are memory stories, or books that these authors have written based on memories. So the one that we are going to read today is called When I Was Young in the Mountains, and it is by Cynthia Rylands. And Cynthia Rylands also wrote the book that we read a few weeks ago called The Old Woman Who Named Things. Remember, it was about the woman who all of her friends had died, and she was scared to name things because she was afraid that she would lose them. But that little puppy shows up, and she decides to name him. So this is by the same author. This is a memory story. So I'm wondering, based on the title, When I Was Young in the Mountains, what her memories are going to be about, what they're going to have to do with. All right, so let's read to find out. When I Was Young in the Mountains by Cynthia Rylands, illustrated by Diane Good. When I was young in the mountains, Grandfather came home in the evening, covered with black dust of a coal mine. So coal, if you're not sure what it is, coal is a kind of rock that people burn for light and heat, and it can be very dusty. So I noticed that he looks like he has kind of chalk on him. That's from the coal. He would work in the coal mine, and you get very dirty down there. Only his lips were clean, and he used them to kiss the top of my head. When I was young in the mountains, Grandfather spread the table with hot cornbread, pinto beans, and fried okra. Okra is a kind of vegetable, if you have not heard of it before. Later in the middle of the night, she walked through the grass with me to lead. Later in the middle of the night, she walked through the grass with me to the Johnny house and held my hand in the dark. I promised never to eat any more than one serving of okra again. What do you think happened? I promised to never eat more than one serving of okra again. How do you think she's feeling? Maybe sick? Have you ever ate too much of something and gotten sick? When I was a little girl, I ate way too many jelly beans. And I threw up all night long. And for years and years and years, I never ate jelly beans again. It's only been like in the past 2 years that I've had jelly beans. I did not want anything to do with them. When I was young in the mountains, we walked across the cow pasture and through the woods, carrying our towels. The swimming hole was dark and muddy, and we sometimes saw snakes, but we jumped in anyway. On our way home, we stopped at Miss Crawford's for a mound of white butter. Mr. Crawford and Mrs. Crawford looked alike and always smelled like sweet milk. When I was young in the mountains, we pumped pails of water from the well at the bottom of the hill and heated the water to fill round tin tubs for our baths. So it seems like they live with their grandparents. Afterward, we stood in front of the old black stove, shivering and giggling, while Grandmother heated cocoa on top. When I was young in the mountains, we went to church in the schoolhouse on Sundays, and sometimes we walked with the congregation through the cow pasture to dark swimming hole for baptisms. My cousin Peter was laid back into the water, and his white shirt stuck to him, and my grandmother cried. When I was young in the mountains, we listened to frogs sing at dusk and awoke to cowbells outside windows. Sometimes a black snake came in the yard, and my grandmother would threaten it with a hoe. The grandmother looks angry. What do you think it means to threaten it with a hoe? What do you think the snake would do? Maybe eat the chickens? And I'm sure grandmother and the family use the chickens either to eat for food or use their eggs. So having a snake would not be good. If it did not leave, she would use the hoe to kill it. Four of us once draped a very long snake, dead of course, across our necks for a photograph. Do you see the dead snake that grandmother killed with a hoe? A hoe is a garden utensil. I would love to see the real picture, because I bet this book is based on a real memory that Cynthia Rylant has, kind of like your small moment stories that you've been writing. Maybe you can turn them into a book. When I was young in the mountains, we sat on the porch swing in the evenings, and grandfather sharpened my pencils with his pocket knife. Grandmother sometimes shelled beans and sometimes braided my hair. The dogs lay around us, and the stars sparkled in the sky. A bob white whistled in the forest. Bob, bob, bob white. When I was young in the mountains, I never wanted to go to the ocean, and I never wanted to go to the desert. I never wanted to go anywhere else in the world, for I was in the mountains, and that was always enough. The end. I hope you liked that story. Cynthia Rylant is one of my favorite authors. I read her book, When the Relatives Came, a lot when I was younger. So just like Tomie dePaola, we've now read 2 Cynthia Rylant books. And if you like her stories, then I encourage you to request some of her books from the library. All of you can request books online from the public library, and you can pick them up at their pickup window. You don't even have to go inside, and all library books are free. So if you really like Cynthia Rylant books, if you really like the author Mo Willems and Elephant and Piggie books, I encourage you to check out the library's website, get a library card, request books. There's no better resource than the library. So let me know if you do that. I would love to hear if you have gotten any books from the library and what they are. I do know that they have a huge collection of Elephant and Piggie books, and I know that there's a lot of Elephant and Piggie fans in our class. So that would be a great place to get some. Okay, have a good rest of your day, and I will see you for small group if I have you in small group later. Bye.